Hi everyone, my name is Cheryl. Welcome to my Happy Handcraft studio. It's been busy. I've really enjoyed June. Lots of different things that I've made, went to some different places, met some great people. So I'm going to tell you about that now. So I'm going to talk to you about my whips. I'm also going to talk about my trip to Stitch and Stash 2024 in Edmonton at West Edmonton Mall, and a few things that I made for it. So I may add a bit if this video is under 30 minutes, but if it's more, you can expect a second video probably coming the first week of July. So let's get started. So what I was working on. So prior to Stitch and Stash, one of my whip goals for June was to work on Hoity Toity. So Hoity Toity is from Long Dog Sampler, and I've done it on a 32 count antique white Lugana using the called for DMC. So I ended up putting over 2,400 stitches in this one because I was also working on a challenge for semi-sane stitchers. So I got a good amount of that worked on. So then to prepare for Stitch and Stash, I put some half crosses into a couple of projects. And that was so when I was at Stitch and Stash and visiting with everyone, I wouldn't have to count. So one of the things that I worked on was my 52 book reading tracker. This is by Stitching Cabin. I got it on Etsy. This is on a 32 count pearl gray Lugana, and I'm using a mixture of DMC. So what I worked on was I had a lot of the bookshelf done in half crosses. I finished that up. I also put in a few books, and I did some backstitch along books and on these flower pots as well. So I was really pleased with the progress that I got on that one. The next one that I worked on at Stitch and Stash was Merry Christmas. This is a Durene Jones pattern. I'm doing mine on, I think it's a 16 count khaki even weave. I'm not sure what it was. It's an unknown fiber. And for this one, I had put in a lot of half crosses in the beard and in both sides of the Santa suit. So I did quite a bit of fill in there. Again, for being at a retreat, I did pretty good. So now I'm going to show you the two mystery projects that I had from last month that were my smalls exchange for Stitch and Stash. And then I'll also show you what I received in return. So the first one was for a Christmas exchange. And for that, I did a little bird, and it was from La Comtesse La Pointe de Croix. And I also included a little ornament with an owl on a branch. And I was so happy. It went to my friend Barb from Stitching at the Library. So I know it has a very good home. The next, and what I received this from Donna, and it's a frosty mug, or a whipped cream mug, I would guess. So I'm going to be happy to put that on my tree. And then the next smalls exchange, the theme was winter. And for that, in the November-December 2002 Stoney Creek magazine, I found this pattern for Christmas red snowflake, and what I ended up doing was doing this on white, and I used 42 DMC for the color, and I made it into a project bag. And this exchange was full of friendship, because the one that I received was from Barb. We could have just done this at the library, but no, we went to Edmonton and exchanged ornaments. So this is just a beautiful little sleigh that I can hang on my tree. So there were some hugs involved for that, for sure. And my project bag went to the friend of one of my longtime followers, Patty. So it went to someone that I'm sure will appreciate it and enjoy it. So those were the things that were in the Smalls exchange. I'll talk a little bit more about Stitch and Stash right now. So Stitch and Stash is a retreat held in Edmonton in June, and the organizers are Jean and Kelly and their crew, and they just do an amazing job of welcoming Stitchers. I can't imagine a better retreat. You're warmly welcomed. There are surprises every day. Wonderful people come to Stitch. It's fabulous. I would highly recommend it. We had people from all over Canada. We had people from the States, and we had our lovely Marilyn from Australia. So people come from far and wide to this retreat. I can't show you everything that we received, but I will show you just a few of the things. I think what's different about this retreat is we get so many handmade items. So this is a favorite, Stitch and Stash, and this snaps together to make a little tray. I'll just snap it quick so you can see. And this is great for corralling all of your threads and things at your place. That was wonderful. And what's I also think is unusual is that so many of Jean's and Kelly's friends in the area make things. Like the Misfit Trio, they made over 100 different little yarn ornaments for people to hang on their trees. And one of the ladies made, like I said, over like 140 little snowman cup cozies. So that's adorable. And then I really thought this was great. This is the Stitch and Stash needle minder. And then, of course, the vendors taking part add things. This is something I'm going to be sure to start, maybe even in July. This is from the Tiny Modernist. Eat, Stitch, and Be Merry. And from Cheryl, Creations by Cheryl, this great vinyl pouch. Traditional Stitches. We had a clip for us this time. We had a little thread keeper. And then there were other things, but we had from the Grateful Thread, Charlene, she had this wonderful bag of finishing things. And I got more here. I put them out so I could find them. Oh, here they are. So Karen at Rocky Mountain Needleminders had this in. Cute as a Button Needleminders had some pins. I think. And then Carrie of Roxy Floss Co. was there, and she handed everybody a nice set floss. And then, of course, there's tables, and people at our table were just so wonderful. We were lucky to have Karen and Charlene sit with us, so we got some more of their goodies. A scissor fob from Charlene, and another needle minder from Karen. And then I'm going to arrange and take a picture of all the other things that everyone at the table gave. It was just lovely to have those reminders. And then someone not sitting at my table, but who I correspond with every video, is Patty. Patty comes from BC to be with us, and she had just a great little package for me. And I know she was thinking of me when she did this. Do more of what makes you happy. And then a great pair of scissors. And I really like this little matchbook needle minder. So it was great to see her. It's nice. It's really nice to see people that you meet on FlossTube. And I did meet several other people. Thank you for coming up and telling me that you watch my FlossTube. Sometimes I feel like, there's one or two of you out there, and I guess there's more. So that was great. And like I said, I'll have a picture to show of everything. Okay, so what did I purchase at Stitch and Stash? So I don't really need anything, but I really appreciate that the vendors come and sell things. And so for me, these are more like souvenirs, right? Just to remember the day. Now, this little souvenir just brings me so much happiness. This is Karen's Rocky Mountain Needle Minder. I can't look at this little hedgehog without just smiling. I just love it so much. So that was from there. And then from Charlene at Grateful Threads, I purchased this kind of a mauvey with a green sparkle in it. This is a 28 count even weave. It feels nice, so I can hardly wait to use that. And then from Traditional Stitches, like, this is really a souvenir. It's the Satsuma Street little couple, a merry pair, and that has everything in there. So have to remember the hard work of all the people who came. All right, so my plans for stitching in July. Oh, I have one more thing to show, and I can talk about this as well. When I got home from Stitch and Stash, I worked on my Simplicity Vintage. It should be here. Yes, Simplicity Vintage. So this one I didn't take because it was, I'm at the point of putting all of the back stitch on. So I finished the blue dress. I'm working on this coral colored one. And I'll be continuing to work on this into July because this was one of my whip go calls. So I think that I'll be able to finish this without a problem in July. I'll try to get that done quite quickly. And then when I got home, I also worked on my favorite, 324. This is Works by ABC, Arlene Cohen. And this is on a 32 count white Jobelin. And to complete June, I have 3 here, and then to finish this bottom row. And then that one will be ready for July. So on my chart, this is what I'm completing right here. So I'm excited. That's what I'm going to work on end of June. Simplicity Vintage, top stitching or back stitching, and 324. So Whip Go, like I said, Simplicity Vintage was one of mine called. So I'll get that done. And then Kingdom of Books was called, and I'm really excited to get back to this because this is such a huge project. And I have just that much so far. So I'll be able to work on that as well. So looking forward to July stitching. So during the Stitch and Stash retreat in Edmonton, I took a morning off and I went to Quilt Canada. So Quilt Canada is a juried quilt show, and quilters from all over Canada come to see all the wonderful quilts and all of the wonderful merchants that are there. And so, I mean, I saw lots of friends and acquaintances and everyone I know from quilt guilds and everything. I also saw Brenda from Conquering Mount Scrapmore. She has a YouTube channel as well that I follow. And she was so nice. She said, "Want to have a picture with me?" I said, "Okay, hey, we'll get that quilt in there too." And it was great. So yes, looked through all of the exhibits, saw the beautiful quilts, and then I purchased a couple of things. Again, souvenirs. I did not buy any fabric. Fabric is not something I need. So I purchased this. This is called a seam isolator. So basically, when you're piecing, you want your pieces to be accurate. You lay the seam on the top and you press it open, and it naturally falls open. So I bought that. And then, because it was the same place, I bought this lovely tree carved out of juniper. And I just realized I forgot to show what I made for my table people. And it's going to be the thumbnail for this. And that is these little owls. They're little pin cushions. And I made enough for the table. And I put pin cushions in them for the people there. I'll link, and this is the same pattern as the little ornament I made. I just put it onto a branch and put little leaves on the branches that I gave to Barb. So I'll link this pattern. I've shown it before. It's a great little pattern. You can make it in all sizes. I've got kind of the mother of all right here. So you can see you can really make them a variety of ways. I was really happy with how that turned out. So it was a wonderful time. And before I had left to go up to Edmonton, I cleaned my sewing studio. You wouldn't believe it right now because I've been very busy. I cleaned my sewing studio so that when I came home, I could just work on whatever I wanted to. And what I decided to do, I had this all cut out. All I needed to do was sew it together. And that was from this article. It's called Oh Canada. I wanted to make this quilt. This was from the 1996 Crafts Plus magazine, which was a Canadian crafts magazine. I doubt if it's still in operation. But this is what I decided I was going to make, and this is all, it's all scraps. And so there it is. Oh, Canada. I'm really happy with how it turned out. And I went into my stash of fabric, and for the backing I had this beautiful maple leaf to put on the back. So that's going to go over our fireplace for Canada Day, which is coming up July 1st. So I'll also get all of my patriotic stitching out and put that as well. Okay, books. I'm just flying through all of this. This is great. Okay, so books. The first I'm going to talk to you about is probably one of my favorites. It was good. It was called Mrs. Quinn's Rise to Fame, and it's by Olivia Ford. So if you love the Great British Baking Show and the Canadian one, I don't know if they have one in the US or not. In this story, 77-year-old Jenny decides to enter Britain Bakes. She didn't raise children, so she feels that she's done nothing with her life, but she is a great baker. So this story goes back and forth between the competition and events in her past that led her to where she is today, and the recipes that were involved. My only complaint about this book was that they did not include every single recipe because, yeah, you know, your mouth waters when you read this book. It was great. And then the next book that I listened to, and you know, luckily it's a nice long trip up to Edmonton and back, was called Fellowship Point. And this is by Alice Elliott Dark. And I guess I'm drawn to elderly women thinking about what they've done in their past and what they want to see going through to the future. So the main person in this story is Agnes Lee, who grew up on Fellowship Point. Fellowship Point was settled by a group of wealthy Quakers, and they built 5 cottages. Cottages that have help, you know, like they have, you know, they had maids and cooks and all that kind of thing. Now they just have, like they'll have a housekeeper. But the 5 families who originally had these houses also take care of a piece of land called the sanctuary. They call it the Sank. And this is a place where the indigenous people of the area had a summer camp. This is where the eagles nest. You know, it's very much, you know, a land that you want to conserve. And so Agnes is getting very concerned that it is going to be eventually sold off and developed into resorts. And so she is really working with her friend Polly to somehow put this into a land trust. So we hear about Agnes Lee and Polly, about their life growing up on Fellowship Point, and then how their lives were very different. Agnes never married. Polly married and had 3 children. She had a professor husband who really only loved his work, but she really loved him, and she was happy with that. Agnes writes a children's book, a series about Nan, and we hear about the real life girl that she wrote about. And, you know, it takes place from when she was a child, and now she's in her 80s. And so it's one of those family sagas, I guess, but with that conserving nature in it as well. And then finally, I don't tend to pick up romance books, but this one was recommended, and it's the perfect summer read. It's called Second Chance Hotel, and it's by Sierra Godfrey. So this is about Amelia Lang's life. She works in the tech industry. She's developing code, and her ex-fiance sabotages her at work. She throws a mug at his head, and she's fired. She travels Europe and eventually ends up in Greece at this beautiful seaside hotel, and she meets this nice young man from the U.S. there, James. And Takis, the owner of the hotel, gets them drunk and has them married. Yeah, it's a romance. Don't expect real logic. And it's a great story about the ins and outs of restoring an old hotel. It's enjoyable. I think you'd enjoy it too. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for joining me. I hope that you're inspired to stitch or sew. I know this June, July, August, I really love being in my sewing room. My sewing room is on the lower level, so it is nice and cool in the summer. So I come down here and I'm just as happy as can be. How about you? Like, is summer your best time, or is it other seasons of the year that you're much more into your hobbies? I am golfing. I've been golfing at least once a week, so that's been great. So I've been getting out and enjoying the Alberta sunshine, and it's all good. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you the next time. Bye-bye.